part of a three-part series of a Council at Large Candidates Forum, which is sponsored by the Paterson Municipal Council, and I am Ruby N. Cotton, Council President and Councilwoman for the Paterson 4th Ward. I will be your moderator for this afternoon. The purpose of this forum is to formally present the at-large candidates in the upcoming municipality election on Tuesday, May 8, 2018, for you, the viewers and the voters, to hear their platform or views on which they are seeking to fill the office of the Council at Large. This afternoon, we are hosting 5 of the 14 at-large candidates. However, in the municipality election on May 8, 2018, you will be able to vote for 3 candidates. The candidates featured today are vying to be elected to the office of Council at Large are as follows in alphabetical orders: Douglas L. Maven, Lilisa Mimms, Kenneth McDaniel, Angela Muhammad, and Casey Melvin. Please use this platform to familiarize yourself with the candidates as well as listen to their views. As your moderator, I will strictly enforce the time allotted to each candidate and maintain a decorum of discipline, and will intervene in the event of any deviation from the spirit and the purpose of this forum. I must ask that all candidates please show respect and courtesy to each other. The order of the forum is as under. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to present his or her opening statements in alphabetical orders. Each candidate is permitted to ask other candidates 3 questions in 1 round. The respondent candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. There will be absolutely no rebuttal by any candidate, whether you are the one asking or responding to a question. Candidate will also have 5 minutes to wrap up and give his or her closing remarks. I am accompanied today by our municipal clerk, Ms. Sonia L. Gordon, and who will be our timekeeper, and 2 of her staff, Ms. Joan Campbell Douglas and Ms. Paula Ruse. Thank you for participating, and we will now begin the forum. I will begin with the first candidate, Mr. Douglas L. Maven, who will introduce himself and present his opening remarks. Please, Mr. Maven.
Thank you, Councilwoman Cotton. My name is Douglas L. Maven. I'm senior pastor of First Name Zion Church here at the city of Paterson, where I've served for the past 27 years. I believe my past and present experiences have prepared me to offer myself as a candidate for Council at Large here in the city of Paterson. For the past 10 years, I've served as commissioner for the Passaic County Board of Social Services, presently serving as its secretary-treasurer. I'm also commissioner for the Housing Authority for the city of Paterson. I'm the founder of the board president of New Destiny Family Success Center, where for the past 12 years we have serviced a myriad of services for nearly 1,200 families each year. We are presently the lead partner for the full-service community school at the Frank Lautenberg School, formerly known as School 6. As CEO of my church's Community Development Corporation, we converted an abandoned mill building on 19th Avenue to 19 units of affordable housing for persons with disabilities. As a National Fellow for the Ford Foundation, I partnered within Hoffman LaRoche Pharmaceuticals of Nutley to develop, implement, and administer a program for Paterson congregations that provided programs and activities that strengthen families. In collaboration with the Paterson Task Force for Community Action, I managed a grant program from the Robert Woods Foundation called Faith in Action, which provided volunteer services for elderly and disabled persons of our city. I have a BS degree in Industrial Management and Technology, a Master's of Divinity degree, and earned a Doctorate of Ministry from Hartford Seminary. I'm a professionally trained community organizer, understanding the importance of unifying people around common goals and ultimately helping people build power that brings about change. Like many of my colleagues seeking to serve in one of the 3 council seats at large on May 8th, I want to see our city council and administration working together on a common vision for a better Paterson. I want to see our city doing those things that best represents the citizens of Paterson. That's why I chose as my designation, putting the people of Paterson first. As an elected official, we are not to serve our interests or to promote our own desires, but we're elected to represent and serve the people who voted us into office. If you elect me, Douglas L. Maven, I vow to do just that. I have no agenda but the people's agenda. I make no promises to do things that I do not have the authority to deliver. The best any one of us can do is to listen, hear your voice, know your concerns, and do all within our power to make your voices and desires known and heard throughout the legislative process, and by holding ourselves and the administration accountable to the people who they elected to serve. For all my adult life, I have been nothing more than a servant, whether behind the pulpit, sitting on a community board, or organizing people for social change. I'm a servant. Your concerns are my concerns, your issues are my issues, the crime and violence, the need for recreation for our children and youth, the tax burden on homeowners, the need for economic development and revitalization, the struggle for our seniors, and how essential it is to recast the negative image of Paterson and restore it as a viable place where people want to come. I believe Paterson's best days are yet to come, and I want to help make those days possible. I believe I can help to make those days possible, and I ask you to trust me with your vote. Together, we will make that day possible. I am Reverend Douglas L. Maven, row 2B on the ballot. I ask for your vote, I ask for your support, that we put the people of Paterson first. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Maven. I would now introduce our second candidate, Mr. Kenneth McDaniel, who will introduce himself and present his opening remarks. Mr. McDaniel.
Thank you, Council President, and greetings to everyone in the city of Paterson. My name is Ken McDaniel. I am a former city councilman. In 2012, I was elected in a special election to complete the term started by our current assemblyman, Benji Wimberly. I have not been on the council since 2014. I am looking to return to the council in an effort to bring leadership, experience, and know-how to the council and serve the citizens of Paterson. In Paterson, my work in the community is known. I participate with an organization called the Brothers of Paterson, where we have hosted a lot of events throughout the city of Paterson, serving our entire community. I participate with my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, raising money for scholarships for children, young people in the city of Paterson. I've also worked with Ceasefire Organization. I'm currently the president of the Passaic County Sheriff's Community Committee, and I have an internet radio show called The Urban Renaissance, where we discuss issues and topics related to Paterson and our entire country. What I bring to the table in this particular election is my experience and my background on the City Council. While on the City Council, I had the opportunity to do a lot of work with resolutions, ordinances, and changing the way things work here in the city of Paterson. One of the biggest accomplishments, I believe, that has taken place in the last 20 or so years is the current hotspot legislation. And I was instrumental in working on that legislation when I participated with the Public Safety Committee on Paterson's Municipal Council. I have a plan for Paterson that I encourage folks to reach out to me. I'll give my number. It is 973-910-0750. And in this plan, when I send it to you, I can bring it to your home or send you a digital copy. In this plan, I talk about things like an audit, which I am in favor of for our city government. We need to get our finances under control. I talk about exploring different avenues to bring recreational programs for our youth and even our seniors. I talk about economic growth that we desperately need here in the city of Paterson. I also talk about my ideas for public safety, which is probably the most important thing that will help us bring in revenue, help us attract new businesses. I talk about community engagement, public administration, and I close my plan out with a program that I am designing to help Paterson individuals, residents of the city of Paterson, become homeowners, where the municipal government will help us to become homeowners. And we do everything in this program, from helping you finance the home, helping you rehab the home, and watching the entire process from point A all the way to Z. And I believe that is what we need. We need to rebuild our city one parcel at a time. My name is Ken McDaniel. I am row 7B on your ballot. On May 8th, I'm asking you to vote for leadership and experience. Vote for me, Ken McDaniel, row 7B.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. We will now have our third candidate, Mr. Casey Melvin, who will introduce himself and present his opening remarks. Mr. Melvin, please.
Yes, thank you, Council President. I want to say good afternoon to all the viewers that are watching this presentation. My name is Casey Melvin. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Paterson. I'm also a business owner. I've been in business since 1994, so for 24 years, I'm a self-employed business owner in the city of Paterson. I have a barbershop. The barbershop is called Simply the Best. And in the past 24 years, we have employed well over 60 to 90 people and provided them with an opportunity to take care of their families. I'm also what many may consider a community activist. I'm well engaged in my community. My community is my passion. For the past 23 years, I was a part of an event that's held every year in Montgomery Park called the Day of the Babies. This event is a back-to-school event which provides education, opportunities. We give out school supplies, book bags, entertainment, as well as prizes and trophies for young individuals in the community, and we've been supported by various groups and organizations. And this event was sponsored by the finances of average people, average community people. I've also been a part of the Paterson Public School System. I was the president of the Parent Leadership Alliance, which is an executive parent group that superseded and supervised all the activities of the smaller parent groups for approximately 4 years. The Parent Leadership Alliance, composed of different parents from different schools in the Paterson Public School District, was a driving force in the implementation of school uniforms. The school uniform policy could not be a policy initiated by the district, so it was required that a parent group initiate that, and I was part of that group that made that school uniform policy accepted by the district. I participated in activities with several organizations in government, the Passaic County Sheriff's Department, the Paterson Police Department, and the Probation Department. I provided training, mentorship, and support to individuals who were under involved with the justice system. Going into my platform and the reason why I'm running, which I believe is very important. For more than half my life, I've been a participant in trying to make our city be seen in a better light and investing in human development. Not necessarily, I hear a lot about economic development, but I think that our city is not being judged by the intangible things, but we're being judged by our humanity. So if I'm elected in office, I want to participate in developing our human capital. I want to provide economic opportunity on the highest level, not just renting and low blue-collar jobs, but I want to provide high-paying positions of job opportunities. I want to provide home ownership, and I've been an advocate for that for quite some time. I believe that government was designed to help the people. It was designed for the people, to benefit the people, and I don't think that's being done at its fullest extent. So if I'm elected, if you guys can support me, I will do my best to make the people my priority. That is my slogan. I live by that. I stand by that. I'm a common person. I'm approachable. I'm innovative. I'm a new and fresh face. I'm not part of the status quo, and I'm here to make absolute change. My name is Casey Melvin. My number on the ballot is 8B. So I would appreciate not only your support, but your family member support, and I'll guarantee you that I'll do my best to make our city proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. Our fourth candidate that we have is Lilisa Mimms, who will introduce herself and present her opening remarks. Ms. Mimms.
Thank you so much, Council President, to our city clerk, and to our fellow candidates that are running for council at large. My name is Lilisa Mimms. I am 3B on the ballot. Let me just tell you a little bit about who I am. I've lived in Paterson all of my life. I grew up in the 4th Ward. I've lived in the 2nd Ward. I've lived in the 1st Ward. And I live in the 3rd Ward, and my church is in the 5th. I am a pastor in the city as well. I'm a single mother of 4 children, and I have 2 grandchildren. I went through the Paterson public school systems, graduating from School 21. I went to Paterson Catholic for 2 years, and then I went to Eastside High School, where I graduated in 1987, and was a part of the Eastside Marching 100, where we marched on the fields of the Hinchcliffe Stadium, which is in desperate need of repair. I went downtown to Passaic County Community College, where I received my associate's in marketing. I have a bachelor's degree in marketing from the University of Phoenix. I have my master's in religious studies and my doctorate in ministry, a part of my pastoral experience. Alongside of that, I have a project management certificate from the George Washington University. I've been a corporate executive for the last 27 years. I was in the cable industry. Then I worked in Bell Atlantic, which is now known as Verizon. I was there. I helped to be a part of the development of the Fios product. I worked in the engineering department, so I dealt with finance, engineering, operational efficiency, organizational leadership, project management, acquisition, cost, and branding. I also, in the community, I've been a school board commissioner. I was elected in 2014. I served my term, and my term ended in December of 2017. I helped to ensure that cursive writing was returned, make sure there were teachers in every classroom, there were nurses in every building. We ensured that when parents came to the microphone, that we had a parent survey form or parent recap and follow-up form, so that after the parents left the microphone, we followed up to ensure that their voices were not only heard, but their issues were dealt with. I am currently the vice chair of the Economic Development Board for the city of Paterson. I've learned many things about economic development, how to increase our ratables, and to ensure that the residents and the city of Paterson are first. I also have a background where I do a lot of community service in our community. I serve as a pastor in the city. I've been pastoring for the last 9 years. I've been in ministry for 28 years. I'm not new, a new face to this city. I've been here for 48 years, and I've been advocating and fighting. I've been a voice for you. I've been ears for you. I've been eyes for you. I've been there at the hospitals when there were shootings. I've been there at the funerals where I eulogize. I was there as a counselor for your children, for families, for our seniors, making sure that our seniors were provided with resources and opportunities to go on trips and all different kinds of activities. Let's talk about my plan. For months, it's been over 8 months, I developed a 39-page plan. It's called the Better Plan, and that's what we're looking to move towards, a better Paterson. BETTER is the acronym for the plan, and BETTER stands for building a foundation for the embetterment of Paterson. The E stands for engaging the community. The T is for transformative thought leadership. The other T is for transparent and accountable government. The other E stands for enabled services, and the R stands for responsive enforcement. It is time for Paterson to move forward. I am running for this position because I believe I have the experience, I have the education, and I have the passion to ensure that the residents and the city of Paterson are first. You can look at my plan. It's on my website, www.tmimms.com. You can visit me at my headquarters. It is located 247 Broadway, right across the street from the library. You can also call me. My number is 973-902-1957. I would love to meet with you. I would love to greet with you and also eat with you. My name is Lilisa Mimms. I am running to ensure that we put the residents in the city of Paterson first. I believe the time is now for a change. It is time for a fresh wind. It is time for unity and strength so that Paterson will be known for its strengths versus its weaknesses. It's time for Paterson to be rebranded, remarketed, and re-strategized to ensure that we're moving in the right direction, and that direction is forward. My name is Lilisa Mimms. I'm 3B on the ballot. I'm asking for your vote for from yourself, from your friends, your families, and your neighbors, and anyone that you come in contact when you vote for someone that walks in integrity, honesty, and leadership to move this city forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Mimms. We will now have our fifth candidate, Ms. Angela Muhammad, who will introduce herself and present her opening remarks. Ms. Muhammad, please.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Council President, City Clerk, staff. I'd like to thank the residents, and most of all, I'd like to thank God for this opportunity. Assalamu alaikum, that simply means may peace be unto you all. And I open up Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and I open up with the help of God because I truly believe we cannot do anything without God. I am Sister Angela Muhammad. I am a lifelong resident of the city of Paterson. I offer the city, my skills, my talents, and my genuine care and concern as the possible next council person at large. My vision is simply a union of ethical business administration joined with genuine care and concern for community development. Being certified in government economic policy, I'm able to go into legislative decision with a keen eye and knowledge of how to run a successful municipality. As a certified tax preparer, I understand tax law and what exemptions the city can benefit from. I've managed 2 businesses for a total of 27 years, overseeing accounts payable, accounts receivable, and all company expenses. As a manager for a transportation company, my duties included contracting and bidding, insurance claims and adjustment, and mainly to stay out of the red, which we all know is to stay from a deficit. I maintain an ethical business which benefited the company that I work with. It also built a trust with the company's clientele. Because I believe in business that there should be a moral standard, and that's what I plan to bring, moral character to business for Paterson. Which leads me to my studies for community development. Beyond contracts, because we can talk about numbers all day, but we're dealing with lives and we're dealing with people. So contracts that should benefit our city, but I really want to personally push for 4 possible community centers for all 4 areas, North, South, East, and West Paterson, that not just deal with sport and play. We have a population here in Paterson that's illiterate, and it transcends ages. So these community centers should be offering education for all levels. We have so much untapped talent in Paterson that we can use. So me being certified in psychology also, I know that the city's residents have a need to be healed through counseling that these community centers, again, can offer. Education, when we educate residents, we have possible employed residents. They have the potential to be employed, and employed residents the city can benefit from. So I push education that is free for all residents via the community centers, because we need to reinvest in the residents, because that's our greatest gift. So again, I'm Sister Angela Muhammad, 13B on the ballot. I'm your sister, your servant, your friend. I have been working in the streets of Paterson since 1994 as a voice for the voiceless. I've counseled families that lost loved ones to violence, family members. When Lawrence Myers was killed by the police, I was there with his family. Up until now, I constantly am available to work with the residents and look into healing our community. I'm Sister Angela Muhammad, your sister, your servant, your friend. You can always contact me, if not through Facebook. My phone number is 973-583-1125. I am the founder of the Do It for Love Foundation, which also helps the residents gain a sense of self-examination, self-respect, and self-pride. Again, Sister Angela Muhammad, 13B on the ballot, your sister, your servant, your friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Muhammad. Mr. Ming? Yeah, it's... Okay. Thank you. We're now going to go into our second part of the candidates forum, where each candidate can ask up to 3 questions to any of the candidates here, and each candidate who is allotted 2 minutes to respond to each question. And our first candidate up is Reverend Douglas Maven, who will be asking the first set of questions. You may proceed, Mr. Maven.
Yes, I'd like to first ask my fellow candidates, each of you can answer, how will you convince other council members that your ideas or plans are preferable to their own? And how will you build consensus among council members on issues?
Mr. Maven, you want them to go down in order?
Yes.
Okay. We'll start with Mr. Ken McDaniel.
Thank you, Reverend Maven, for that question. Well, I can speak from experience since I have served on the City Council. And what I always attempt to do is lay out everything that I'm trying to set forth. I speak from an area of common sense, and I can always answer questions. I come to the fellow council members with respect. I don't come to the members saying that, well, my idea must be better than yours. I'm cooperative and I'm willing to work, and I believe that the answers don't always come from just one individual. We work together as a team and in an effort to do what's best for Paterson.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ed, for that question. So to build consensus and encourage other of your colleagues to agree with your ideas, pretty much in a nutshell. Am I clear with that, the question? Okay. And that's very, very important. I told a group of seniors yesterday that I want to be straightforward with you. I'm not going to make you any promises or any commitments, because I understand, and based on your question, it put emphasis on the fact that one individual cannot do anything alone. So that question is very, very important. People promise you things and they tell you they're going to do things, but without the support of at least 4 more colleagues, none of your ideas will come into fruition. So I'm glad you asked that question to the public. The first thing I do is I would first find a common ground. My intent would be to put forth legislation that benefits the people. If it doesn't improve the conditions of our people, if it doesn't benefit our people, if it doesn't provide change where it's necessary, then if that doesn't convince them to support it, then I don't have any other recourse. You know, I would rely upon everything that they talked about during the campaign season, even make reference to it, you know, in regards to helping out and addressing the issues of the people, and I'd use that as my formula for support. And if that doesn't work, then it wasn't meant to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. So, great question, Reverend Maven. Great question. So when we talk about building consensus, it's not so much how are you going to do it, but what have you already done to show that you have the capacity or the expertise to make it happen. So as a former school board commissioner, as a pastor, as a leader, one of the things that's very important in building consensus or getting other people to come alongside with the plan that you have is, number one, what's the vision? What are you trying to drive? Where are you trying to go? And what's the benefit? It always has to be a benefit over the differences of opinion. And so you have to bring forth whatever the item is through relationships with your fellow council people, with the mayor, through the administration. You have to be able to sit down and understand what is the vision overall for the city. how are we driving that vision, and then you got to get in some instances where one person, but in some instances you need 4 other votes or you need 5. When it comes to budgetary items, there's some issues when it comes to adding onto the budget, you need 6. So you have to ensure that it's always about benefit over your differences of opinion. You have to make sure that whatever you're trying to do or whatever your platform or vision is, that the residents in City of Paterson are first. You have to make sure you engage the community in the process. So it's not just you trying to get the council to listen to you, but it's always best to have the community come forward. So it's not just you fighting, but they hear the community as well. I think that's important because when you leave the community out, it's all about you. And this is not an I thing, it's a we thing, and we have to move towards that.
Thank you. Just a moment.
How are you, sir?
I'm fine.
Keeping with the spirit of this election, I read in the newspaper yesterday that the other candidates refused to ask each other's questions. And that was my mind frame when I came here, because I really like the spirit exemplified by the candidates. And I'm not here to dim, bash, or degrade. I'm here to simply put my platform out. I appreciate your question. I humbly decline to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Maven. You have 2 more questions that you may ask.
One of the issues that has not come up much in our debates, forums around the city is the issue of the flooding of Paterson. And I'd like to just ask Melvin and Mr. Mimms if they would respond to what do you know about the impact of the flooding issue that it has on Paterson, and what can be done about it? Brother Melvin.
Oh, okay, yes, and I like to write down the question so I can be direct in answering. So the impact of flooding and what could be done. During the previous mayor's election and council's election, I had the opportunity to sit down and have lengthy discussions. In fact, I was involved with some of the affairs that were taking place during our previous flooding and storm incidents. We provided, my organization that I'm a part of, the Brothers Organization, had provided sanitary goods, some water and food to some of the folk who were stranded in shelters. I've even had some people employed with remediation to help bring a lot of those flooded homes back to status. And what I've noticed is pretty much every severe rainstorm, certain parts of the city will experience flooding. So much so that in the during the previous administration, the President of the United States had to come and provide services. I believe that something, not only from our local government, but something that we need participatory services with not only our local government, with the federal government, and our county government as well, to make sure that those areas that experience flooding don't continue to experience those same types of atrocities that they've experienced previously. I kind of in agreement, and I'm willing to support legislatively if I'm elected to remove all of those vital areas that experience flooding and turn them into parks. From my understanding, that was the previous plan, to make them parks. They've talked about building some sort of damming services to control the water. So there are some things on the table already. I don't want to come and reinvent the wheel. I want to support the ideas that's already there, but the ideas that are already there. But I do agree that those areas that experience heavy flooding should not be allowed for people to habitate.
I think this is a great question. I'm not really sure if people really understand the dynamic of the sewer blockage issues that we have in Paterson. I mean, they've been here for a long time, but we also know that we have some financial deficits, and we're in duress in Paterson. When it floods, I'm not sure if we realize that when you go to the drains that are located all throughout the city, they back up because we have some drainage issue, piping issues that are in need of major repair, major work, and it requires financing. And I know we've been trying to get that done for some years. So I would like to push and to partner with our local, state, national and federal partners and areas of government to identify resources to be able to resolve some of those issues. Also, to find grants. I believe we need a grant writer. I also am proposing a program management office for our community. And what does that do? It curbs wasteful spending. It also ensures that we have a project manager, so when we have issues such as flooding, they're prevented. We have someone that is watching through the meteorologist, what is the prediction of the weather, so we can go through. We also need to do cost inventory control through our DPW department to make sure the trucks are working, or are they up to speed, do they need repair. We need to do that more frequently to ensure that when we're providing equipment to our workers, that they have what they need to get the job done. So those are the two issues. We have to make sure there's resources and finances in place, but we have to also make sure the equipment that we have is up to speed to ensure that we can unblock those clogs to avoid the flooding issue in the city.
Thank you. That's the end of my question, Madam President.
That's the end of your three? No, you don't have a third question?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Reverend Maven. Our next candidate up for question and answer period is Kenneth McDaniel.
Okay, I do have three questions written down, and I guess they're open for anyone and everyone who would like to respond. I'll start with these questions are dealing with city government, public administration, things like this, what you would be doing as a city council person. Can you guys tell the residents, the viewers, what the components of a resolution and or ordinance are?
Anybody?
Anyone who wishes to answer Mr. McDaniel?
I'll go first. That's a great question, because we're going to be, I mean, what is a council person if they can't write a resolution, right? If they can't draft a resolution. And I'm going to give you the summary of it as I understand it. For one, from participating in years of council meetings and workshops, I have copies of resolutions and ordinances. The components of a resolution starts off with a motion. And from the motion has to be second, and then a whereas and a be it resolved has to be drafted. So you pretty much have to talk about the issue, the whereas part, and what it involves, what it entails, and then measures on what type of issue would it resolve. You know, a resolution is designed to resolve an issue. And then it has to be voted upon, and you need a majority vote for it to be approved. Now, as far as the specifics, from what I understand, resolutions are drafted with the support of the clerk and corporate counsel, because a person can draft a resolution or an ordinance and it be totally illegal. So if it's not congruent with New Jersey legislation or our Constitution for that matter, then that resolution can be overturned. That's my basic understanding of a resolution and an ordinance. Thank you for that.
You going to answer? Are you going to answer?
Well, I can. A resolution is designed for a call for action on an item or issue for the council. In terms of process, I'm sure it's reviewed by legal to see if it conflicts with any existing laws or ordinances that are already on the books. Certainly has to come before the workshop, whether you discuss it, the pros and cons of it. I think there's 2 readings of it before it becomes up for vote on the council floor, and it's voted up by the majority of the council and enacted.
So the question was resolution and ordinance? That's what you're saying?
The components.
The components. Okay, so before even drafting any type of language or initiating a resolution, first and foremost, you have to make sure that there's no current ordinance or statute on the book. Because you can have a great idea, but it's already there, just possibly needs to be enforced. So that's number one. Number two, you have to make sure the language that's being drafted is approved through Corporation Council. You have to make sure the language fits into some of the union coding, some of that language. You have to make sure it fits into and draft some of the statute, the labor laws that are in place. You have to make sure that within that, language that it has the approval after it's drafted, after it's approved. It has to have signatures on it. After all of that is done, then it is presented in different steps of reading. So you have a first reading, you have a second reading, and then you can go through the approval process. But it's also good, depending on what the resolution is for. Is it public safety? Is it finance or whatever? It's always good to talk through it with your committee, because there are committees that are in place. It's always great to talk it out through your committee to ensure that you're on the same page. It's no good to draft a resolution and you don't have the votes. So it's always good to get the insight, wisdom, or the counsel of your fellow colleagues to ensure that what you're trying to initiate, that they can partner with. And so there's so many different steps to it before you get to a final vote or before we move. And then even after the second reading, it takes about, I think it's like 21 days or something like that. I can't remember the days, but there's still time after that before it's actually initiated. So there's many steps in it, but you still have to get buy-in from your colleagues. Make sure you talk it out in your committee meetings to ensure that it's something that benefits not only what you're trying to do, but we have to make sure everything we draft has the community in mind.
Yep.
Oh, again, how are you, sir? Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Although the Do It for Love Foundation received a resolution in 2013, again, I came here to keep this spirit intact, so I humbly decline your question. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll keep the next question in the same category. Thank you for responding to the first. So staying in that same idea, can you tell us what the differences are between a resolution and an ordinance? And I guess we'll start with Reverend Maven.
To be honest with you, no, I cannot. I don't have the experience, but I'm willing to learn.
Thank you, Reverend.
Okay, I don't think I have anything to lose to take a chance on this one. A difference between a resolution and an ordinance. I know an ordinance, I'll start off with that one, is a law. It's like a law, it's a municipal law, an ordinance. And a resolution, I believe, is just like a proclamation to resolve an issue, to address an issue. Be it resolved. I don't have the technical definition, but I know factually that an ordinance is a municipal law, and then an ordinance is, a resolution is to address, to resolve an issue. And I'll leave it at that. It's to resolve an issue. It's designed to resolve an issue.
Thank you.
So in my understanding, and we have to be clear here, we are not current council members, so we are running to receive that seat. So in the understanding of resolution and ordinance from being up in the council meetings and having the agenda, when you look at resolutions, they're pushing things, for example, like we want to ensure that the coin-operated laundromat is being able to continue doing business. But when you look at an ordinance, it's a law that has to be pushed and enforced through the mayor's office. So when it comes to resolutions, there's things that can be initiated directly through the council that are able to be pushed, but ordinance have to be pushed and enforced through the administrative level. So there are some things that are enforceable through ordinance that through resolution you don't have to go through administration, like saying I want to give a proclamation or a plaque to a church that's been in service for 26 years, you can just do a resolution to provide that where it does not have to be directly administered or enforced through the administration, such as the mayor's office.
Thank you. I believe that Sister Muhammad has voiced her position, so I don't think we should force her to repeat. I'll move on to the third and final question. The City Council deals with governance. What has your educational and or professional experience been with administrative law or public administration? I should say and or public administration.
I'll share my experience with as Commissioner for Board of Social Services, Passaic County Board of Social Services. We oversee the administrative budget for all of Passaic County, programs that address the issues of the poor and the needy. Administrative position as Commissioner for Public Paterson Housing Authority allows us to oversee administration of funds, federal funds, millions of dollars in federal funds, primarily through HUD for development housing in our city. I'm a trustee for the Hood Theological Seminary, our major seminary, Salisbury, North Carolina. Serve as assistant secretary to that board in our university in Salisbury, North Carolina. Administrator for our nomination board of church and growth development as its secretary as well. So all the legislation and resolutions that we have to pass to go through the General Conference of the AME Zion Church, oversee and draft most of those resolutions myself as secretary of the board. Just to name a few of my involvements.
Thank you, Reverend.
Okay, as far as educational background or experience with administrative law in reference to government, I don't think that there is a criterion for one to suggest, petition, grieve, or enact a law. If an individual feels, and it's their constitutional right, to propose legislation through a process, they have a process for any individual who would like to propose legislation and present it to their local government. They have the constitutional right to grieve government, and they have the constitutional right to petition the government without any professional or academic background. The process for one to enact legislation is you have to get a petition of a certain amount of signatures based on the last amount of people who came out in the previous election. Once you get those signatures, you can then draft a resolution and present it to government. So in short, you don't need an administrative or academic degree or level of professionalism to do that. That's everybody's constitutional right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin.
So the question was, what is your experience in public administration or government? So as I stated in my introduction, I'm a former school board member. I served there for the last 3.5 years as an elected official with a budget that was almost twice the city's budget. So when it comes to administration and public service work, that's a part of my experience. I am a pastor in the city. I founded the church that I serve as the pastor over 9 years ago, starting with 0 members and building that capacity, and it's continually growing. As far as government experience, it continues to grow by being the vice chairman of the planning board for the city. So I've been very heavily involved with the economic development process by coming and being a part of those meetings and being able to have input and give guidance and wisdom and insight on behalf of the residents in the city to ensure that businesses are coming in, to make sure that when they're building or bringing in ratables that the residents are included, to make sure that if they're hiring 5 employees that at least half of those employees are Paterson residents. So when it comes to government, I think KC said it best, it's not a requirement to run for this office, but I've been doing it, serving in these capacities to ensure that I had the experience to ensure that I hit the ground running when I came to be your next councilwoman at large.
Thank you, Reverend Mimms, and thank you to all 4 candidates.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. The next candidate up for question and answer will be Mr. K.C. Melvin.
Okay, thank you. I want to begin my first question, and this is to all the candidates, and Sister Angela, if she decides to participate. What is your idea, or what is your vision to address the youth violence in the city of Paterson? I'd like to start with Sister Angela, if you don't mind.
Again, I will say this, since we work together in the streets to curb the violence, that's something that you know, and I humbly decline. Thank you.
Yeah, you can, Ms. Mimms.
Okay, just trying to bring order, right? So when it comes to, I have to go back to the fact that I'm born and raised in Paterson. I was born in the 4th Ward. I currently live in the 3rd, but I lived in the 1st, 2nd, and my church is in the 5th. And so we always talk about what do we plan to do to curb the violence. But the first thing we have to understand is that these are some people's children. These are their sons, their daughters, their nephews, their nieces that are out there. And the first thing is we can't change the culture if we don't speak to them. We have to embrace them in love. We have to be able to talk to them, identify what the root of the problem is. We have to increase our recreational opportunities. We know in our budget currently, the recreation is only 1% of the budget, being $2.1 million. We have to find a way to increase that so that when we're telling them to come away from what they're doing, we can send them to somewhere. You can't bring them out of something and don't direct them to do something that's more productive. So we have to make sure we have things in place, processes in place. We have to understand conflict resolution. How do you bring them to a place of peace? How do you become a mediator? As a pastor, I have witnessed many violent situations by being in the hospitals, eulogizing, being at families' homes, bringing the peace. My headquarters is currently located on Broadway in Auburn, right across the street from the library. 2 days after we went into that headquarters, someone was shot 4 times. 2 blocks down. We went down the street, had some conversations to identify what was going on, just to bring some peace to the neighborhood. Told them who I was, introduced myself, and started building a relationship and a bond with them to understand what's going on. What's the issues? What are your concerns? And once you build that relationship and they can trust you, then we'll see that crime will decrease. Then we'll see that we'll be able to help our youth and our the situations that are going on in the street. But we can't help them if we don't speak to them. We can't help them if we're not embracing them, if we don't know them. You can't help your neighborhood if you don't know your neighbors. So we got to get to know who they are, who their families are. When we were growing up, there were police officers that knew who we were, and they would bring us back to our families to make sure. We need community policing. We need police walking the beat to make sure that they're curbing the crime. We need to make sure that the lights are working. I've been to many areas where some of the lights in the community are not working, so we have to make sure that we do all those things. Thank you.
Thank you for that excellent question. As you know, Mr. Melvin, I've been working with you shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand, for several years on issues such as the one you raised in your question. Together we work with the Brothers of Paterson, Team Charity, the Nation of Islam, and like that old cartoon, Voltron, these separate organizations come together, and when we're together working out in the street with the youth, with the people that are directly involved in some of these situations that we're trying to avoid, we like they formed Voltron, together we form what is known as the Street Keepers. So I would definitely continue to do things of that nature. But on the city council side, I think city government has to meet people where they are. You can't just write something into law and make things all better. You have to go out there and be physically there with the people, listening to their concerns, understanding their concerns, and working on ways to improve their conditions. I believe with education, with jobs, counseling, mediation services, and other programs, all together, because it's no one simple solution, but all of that together, we can make a difference with this issue of violence in our community. Thank you again for that excellent question.
Thank you for the question. My first reality of Paterson when I came here to pastor, assigned to the church there, was not long before the shooting of Lawrence Myers against the fence of our church. So I began immediately to become engaged in community and the issues of crime and violence in our city, and particularly in our neighborhood. Immediately met with the pastors in that area. We organized ourselves as congregations with faith-based community organizing effort, began to talk to the young people on our streets. I mentioned before, I was a National Fellow for Congress of National Black Churches, worked with Hoffman LaRoche. We were able to get some money to provide funding to our congregations in that neighborhood in particular, to develop programs for youth and families. Several of the churches were able to engage most of those young men in programs that got them off the streets. United Presbyterian had a gym. We had space in our basement. St. Paul had space, and we developed programs for those children. So I think we need to continue to engage our young people. We developed a Family Success Center at the YWCA, a block from our church, and started as the Community Collaborative, Fifth Ward Community Collaborative, which grew into the Family Success Center that now is on Ellison Street in the city of Paterson. So we've engaged all kinds of programs to address our youth, to try to get them off the street, find alternative ways to have success in their life and in their experience. We'll continue to do that, even as a council person, and certainly as the pastor of a church in the community.
Nice, thank you. Okay, my second question, and I'll start with Reverend Maven to all the candidates, is what will be your approach if elected by way of legislation to resolve mental health, drug addiction, and homelessness in the city of Paterson?
Well, I think we need to, one of my concerns is, and what I hope to do as on council, is to be a unifier. My gift is that of collaboration and bringing people together around issues. Many of our nonprofit organizations are working in isolation. We need to really come together and talk about what we can offer our community, not in isolation, but together. And I think we have the resources here in our city with a myriad of nonprofits, social service agencies, that we can do wraparound services for those persons who are in need. Again, the Family Success Center, we're doing that. We don't just deal with the parent. We deal with the child. We deal with the home, with a holistic approach to solving problems in our community. I think we need to talk about what kind of legislation we need to pass collectively. I don't think one individual, again, can do that. I think it needs to be a common vision, a common plan that not only the council, but the nonprofits, social service providers, all come together on. Let's talk about how do we solve these problems. We found that when they were gathering up homeless and peddlers on the street, most of them don't even live in Paterson. So that's another issue we need to address. So we need to look at it from a holistic approach and find solutions that we all agree upon and have the same vision in terms of the end goal to solve those myriad of problems facing our community.
Thank you. Another excellent question. What I would do in this area is work with many of the individuals that I know, and I'm sure that there are others out there that I might not be familiar with just yet. But these people are already on the ground, and they don't have the resources necessary to develop their programs and fund their programs. And I think this is where city government can step in and help out people like Teddy Martinez, who runs a program that deals with and addresses many of the categories that you spoke of. Akbar McIntyre, he runs a program. Kelly Moss Brown runs a program. These individuals have not been as successful as they would want to be and as we would want to see them with regard to bringing in funds to help them fund their programs and run their programs. I think that the city government should step in and offer grant writing seminars, put them in a position where they are more than eligible, where they meet the requirements for CDBG funds and other funds from the state, from the federal level. When they are successful with these programs, our entire city benefits. So we can't just leave them out to do and fend for themselves. Those people that I mentioned and many more represent us, the heart of Paterson. So the government must work with these people. They're the experts. They're on the ground. They know more about this than many of the people running for office, many of the people in elected positions. So we need to tap into those resources and make them more successful.
And so that's a great question. So when you talk about mental health, you talk about drug addiction, you talk about homelessness, all of that embodies people. So it's talking about investing in the human behavior or investing in the humanistic person or the wholeness of a person. So we have to identify that in each of these areas, there's an area of sickness where they need healing, they need to be fortified, they need to be empowered. So I think we need to come together with the meeting of the minds of all the non-for-profits or all the people that are in our community that are already doing the work. We need to empower them, find out what they need and what are their limitations to what they don't have. We also need to initiate where we don't have, such as we have abandoned properties in our community. I think some of those properties could be utilized to house some of these situations. We also need to identify and make sure that when other communities are coming into our communities and setting up tables and feeding on our corners that are not from Paterson, we have to make sure they have fines. I mean, they have permits and they're allowed to do that. But we also have to identify what is a priority. Where the county seat, we get the money here for the social issues that happen, but the majority of those individuals don't live here. So we have to identify, do we want to take care of Bergen County, Essex County, do we want to take care of their concerns, or do we want to make sure we put our residents in the city of Paterson first and make a do a priority listing of how do we address those issues for our people first and then spread it out. So we have to make sure we come together as a collective body so it's not one person making the decision, but it's all of us coming together and making sure that there's resources in place to get it done.
Thank you. Sister.
Tress? In all fairness, and I just am blown away by the questions. They are remarkable. But to be fair to the questions that I passed up, I'm going to have to decline.
Okay, thank you. All right. My final question, I have more than three, but I'll narrow it down to three. This one I think is very important to the candidates, and I'll start with Sister Angela and give you the opportunity to decline. Hopefully this one you'll respond to, but if not, I respect that. But the question is regarding the city's financial status, right? Through my experience in the previous council meetings, I've learned that the city spends more than it receives or more than it generates. So it spends more money than it generates. What is your plan to bring financial stability to our city government's finances?
Before I decline, I would say that in my opening remarks, I mentioned business ethics. Ethical business would alleviate the deficit. It can help alleviate it. That's it.
Thank you.
So let me say this because I know we only have a couple minutes. Good government requires change. So I am pushing forward in my 39-page plan for a strong program management office. The purpose of that is to curb wasteful spending. It allows us to manage the strategic planning process. How do we get there? What's the timeline? What are the benefits? Cost-benefit analysis. Does it make sense? What's in it for us? What do we have to do to get there? We also need to, I'm looking to create and distribute monthly performance scorecards with key metrics that says what are our priorities in cost areas, what are our priority in building, economic empowerment, economic development, a strategic financial plan for the next 3 to 5 years so we're not operating on opportunity costs versus anticipated costs. Also, managing and overseeing all capital investments and provide objective analysis on our return on investment. We have a lot of people that work in this city, but they don't live here, so we don't get a return on our investment. So we're giving our money to people that work here, but they spend it in their communities. So we have to develop some language that identifies where we can hire more of our people that work here. We need to make sure that we are giving them opportunities and bringing them to the table to make sure that they take pride and they have faith in what we're doing in the community. We also need to identify opportunities to reduce costs and reinvest those dollars and reinvest it value-added initiatives like more cops on the street, equipment for our DPW workers, city-wide Employee Appreciation Day, bringing those initiatives back to make sure the morale is boosted in the community. And then we need to track all grants and timelines by making sure we have a project manager and also having a grant writer in place where it's incentive-based, where they're able to find and identify dollars that will help offset the cost so that we're not continually having to do temporary appropriation budgets, that we have costs that come up like the recent vote down of the budget for $4.4 million. We have to anticipate costs. So when we're doing budgets, we can't do it based on opportunity costs where there's wasteful spending, but it has to be more anticipatory.
And thanks again for another excellent question. I'll start off by saying, like Dr. Mimms said, waste is always an issue. That's always a problem. But like you used in your question, generating the funds is, in my opinion, the primary problem. We're just simply not making enough money to pay the bills that this city has. And in my plan, I talk about how public safety relates to economic development. The two go hand in hand. You really can't have one without the other. So we would study cities that are similar in nature, size, population, and what have you. You can look at Newark, for instance, how they cleaned up areas of Newark and made them attractions for commerce. They're earning ratables because of this. So we can't leave out public safety when we talk about generating revenue. That is something that is very important to that. We also must become, and I talk about this in my plan, we must become a client-centered city. And by client, I'm talking about the residents, the people who do business here. We can't appear just to be a statutory form of government where we're just here, you can come, you can take it or leave it. We have to cater to specific businesses that will help our individuals that live here become employed in those businesses. In Newark, they have an infrastructure dealing with fiber optic cable. So now they are a hub and they are attracting IT businesses. We need to follow that lead, not doing the exact same thing, but we need to capitalize on the things that we have that companies will benefit from, bringing those companies, those businesses to our city. And we will develop more ways of generating revenue through that.
I agree. It's a great question, and I agree with my colleagues. We need to find innovative ways to generate revenue for our city. But then I don't want to make it sound as difficult as it is. It's a simple matter of budgeting. We have to do it every day in our homes. Budgeting is simply telling your money where you want it to go rather than asking where it went. And we got to find ways to streamline our budget so we can't spend the money that you don't have. And then until we find ways to bring in new revenue, we need to find a way to streamline the budget. People talked about a forensic audit and all those things. Well, that's fine as well, but also we need to hold people accountable who are responsible for the finances of our city. We know that we're under the eye of the state, and in terms of dollars we spend, they're looking at it. So we have to be careful that we stay within the guidelines and restrictions that have been put on us until we generate the kind of revenue that I think we can generate if we have a common vision for Paterson to move us forward. And with all the rich resources that we have in this city, we can find ways to generate new revenue and new income that will benefit all the citizens of Paterson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. Our next candidate for the question and answer part is Lilisa Mimms.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And so my first question will be open to everyone. How many libraries are in the city of Paterson?
I'm not sure of the number. I know there was a movement to try to get libraries open in the schools in particular. I was part of that process. I know the schools in our neighborhood that we've worked with to try to make sure that they were adequate supplies and books. In fact, we had several book fairs at our church to work with the Kilpatrick school across the street from us to make sure that the children had opportunities to have reading materials and literacy education.
The two that I'm aware of, one on Broadway, one in South Paterson. There used to be one, and I don't know if it's still there, in the Market Street area, but those are the two that I know about that are up and running.
Okay, the libraries. Does that include the free libraries in the park?
No, sir.
Okay, all right.
I know you know that number.
Okay, all right. Okay, the public libraries, I believe that there are three. The South Paterson Library, the Broadway Main Library, and I believe the one on Union Avenue is still active. So I want to say three libraries.
Thank you. My second question, which is two parts. Who's the founder of Paterson, and what year was Paterson founded? I made sure it was down.
Oh, I can go first. Thank you. The key, that's a good question, right? And what I've learned through education is that if you don't know the answer, you got to know how to find the answer. So I look right behind me, and the answer is right above my head, 1792. In the old place where I'm from, Alexander Hamilton Development, Alexander Hamilton founded it in 1792 as the first industrial city, and was classified that from the power of the Great Falls. I know I'm giving too much, but all that goes together. Thank you.
The only thing I'll add is that Google says it's 1791.
And so it was probably between 1791 and 1792. Alexander Hamilton, and certainly first industrial city, historical significance for the city of Paterson that I think we could take advantage of in terms of getting tourism back here.
So, my last question? Wait. So my last question, Angela Muhammad?
Answer this one about Paterson? Okay, I still have to be fair, so I'm going to have to humbly decline, although I worked at the Paterson Museum, but I'll decline.
Thank you. And so that's all my questions for today.
Thank you, Mrs. Mimms. Our next candidate who's up for question and answer is Angela Muhammad, Ms. Angela Muhammad, and she has declined to ask any questions. Thank you, Ms. Muhammad. We will now go into our last part of the candidates forum. No? Yeah. We will now go into our last part of our candidates forum, and we go in reverse order, where Ms. Angela Muhammad will start. You have 5 minutes to wrap up on your closing remarks. We will start with Ms. Angela Muhammad.
Thank you, Council President. Mm-hmm. You know, I was taught that if you teach a man to fish, well, if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. And if you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. And we need to adopt the mentality to teach our residents how to do for self. and not be so dependent, because as we can see with the homeless population rising, like I was stating at the council meeting, I have a young lady that's 7 months high-risk pregnancy, 3 children, and she's homeless. We have went to every resource available here to only be told that they have nothing to offer this mother. So I'm looking into the ailments that plague our city. Of course, homelessness, we have unemployment, we have lack of education. Our city needs immediate attention. We need to address the issues that the residents have. And I've been doing it on a smaller scale through the Do It for Love Foundation. You know, it's a blessing to be able to help people, but it would be more effective on a larger scale as a council person at large. So I'm looking into helping the residents establish education, employment, mental health, clarity, because we have mental health issues that are plaguing the residents that may not be aware of. Are you okay? Okay. Also, I'm looking into we're talking a lot about rateables, bringing external resources into the city. We could beautify this city. I've seen things that were built from the ground up, beautiful, and you know, a few months later I see graffiti all over it, or I see garbage all outside of it. So we have to keep in mind that this has to be a duality. We have to dually, you know, bring in opportunity for our residents. At the same time, we have to help our residents gain a sense of pride that can enable us to take better care of our city. And that is through community resources that we touched on earlier. We need community centers that offers more than basketball and football, and we need to be taught what to do in case of an emergency, in case of a natural disaster. Do you have enough water in your home? Do you not have enough food in your home? Do your family have a place to meet up and know how to move out in case of emergency? And again, addressing some of the questions that were asked by the candidates, and they were absolutely phenomenal questions. You know, I see Paterson as a bunch of scattered pearls. We have so many entities that offer so much, but scattered pearls have some value, but if we strand them up in order and come together and unify, we can be so invaluable. So I look to open a platform for these entities like the Street Keepers and Do It for Love Foundation and other, the Heart of Hannah and the Mature Sisters. We need a platform where they can have access to more support, to access to people, the residents that offer more help. So with that, would be a part of my vision and my platform to be the city council, or being the city council person at large. I'm Sister Angela Muhammad, your sister, your servant, your friend. I am 13B on the ballot, and I offer moral, ethical business administration centered in fearing God. Thank you.
So once again, I want to be...
Thank you, Ms. Muhammad. Our next candidate for their final remarks is Ms. Mimms, please.
My apologies. Thank you so much for this awesome opportunity. I want to thank everyone that will watch this all the way up until May 8th. Paterson, it's time. It's time to make a change, and we are the people. I am your candidate that can do it. Let's go on this vision and journey of time. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see Paterson, our streets clean, safe streets, no potholes? Wouldn't it be nice to see all of our educational resources in place where our children are able to go to the park, they're able to play, they're able to compete not just on a local level but on a global level? Wouldn't it be wonderful to hear good things come out of Paterson and to hear us known as by our strengths and not our weaknesses? Wouldn't it be great to hear great stories out of Paterson versus the negativity that comes through the news media and all other outside sources? It's time, Paterson. It's time for us to build the foundation for a better Paterson. It's time for us to engage the community and make sure your voices are at the table. It's time for transparent and accountable government. It's time for transparent and thought leadership. It's time for us to be in a position where we can pay our bills online and we're not able to just write a check or stand on a long line. We need to move our technology from the Flintstone age to the Jetsons. It's time for us to have responsible enforcement where we can prioritize all of our code enforcement issues to make sure that we're ahead of the game and not behind it. It's time to ensure that we make sure that we care for our workers. We make sure that we have in place some private labor agreements that make sure that people that have skill sets like construction and pipeline work and electricians, that they get a part of the job opportunities that are in the city. It's time for us to economically empower our community by economically empowering the people. We can't have a safe city unless we make a safe city where people are attracted to it, unless we take care of the crime and make sure that we have police on the street. We have to make sure, because we're a cash-strapped city, we have to make sure that we can find resources by having a program management office in place to make sure that we have grant writers, to make sure we have a program management office in place so that we don't have streets that are paved and then have to be pulled up because public service is doing it before you dig. We have to make sure that we have people that are in these positions that take care of the concerns of the residents and the city of Paterson. In my capacity as a pastor, I have the wonderful opportunity to be your full-time council person, where you can call me all day. I'm available. I'm ready, I'm willing, and available to be able to hear, listen, and to be that individual that will listen to your concerns. I'm running for councilwoman at large because we need someone that will be our voice. We need someone that will be our ears, our eyes, someone that's experienced, someone that's not willing to come to the council and learn and have learning curves, but is open and ready to receive information. I've been in the city all my life. I'm a single mother of 4. I have 2 grandchildren. I've been in the city. I've been advocating. I've been serving this community for over 20 years. Haven't been doing it because of a paycheck, not doing it for a title, not doing it because I want my name in lights. I'm doing it because I represent you. I represent your concerns when you can't speak. I represent your eyes when you can't see. I represent your ears when you can't hear. I am here for you. My name is Lilisa Mimms. I'm 3B on the ballot. Estoy aquí para ti. I am here for you. I am Lilisa Mimms. I will fight for you. I will advocate for you. I will be the person that will serve you as a full-time council person where you'll know who I am, you'll know where I am, and you'll know that when I vote and I'm advocating is in the best interest of the city of Paterson. It's time for Paterson to heal. So now the ball is in your court. On May 8th, we have about 12 days left. I need all of your friends, all of your family, and everyone you know that when you go behind the ballot booth, you think of Paterson as being on life support, and it needs to be shot back into life. And when you go behind the ballot, I need each and every one of you to go behind the ballot, and on the count of the 3B, I want you to hit that button, and I guarantee you that life will be revitalized back into the city of Paterson. My name is Lilisa Mimms. I'm 3B on the ballot. You can reach me by coming to my headquarters, 247 Broadway. My phone number is 973-902-1957. You can also text me, Facebook. I'm on Facebook, Lilisa Mimms. I am not new to this. I've been doing this. Paterson, it's time to make a change, and we are the people that can do it. It's not an I thing, but it's a we thing. Let's move this city together forward. Make the right choice. Vote for Lilisa Mimms. I'm 3B on the ballot. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Mimms. Our next candidate to give their closing remarks is Mr. K.C. Melvin.
Yes, thank you, Council President, and I appreciate this forum and opportunity to once again reach out to the members of the City of Paterson. My name is K.C. Melvin. My position on the ballot is 8B, and my slogan, my campaign slogan is making the people my priority. What does that mean? Making the people my priority is making all the issues that concern the residents of the City of Paterson come first. Make it top priority. When we talk about the social ills that our city is being faced with, the homelessness, psychosis, depression, addiction, I want to utilize legislation to address those issues. when we talk about unemployment, underemployment, and lack of economic opportunity, I want to use legislation to provide answers and resolutions towards that. It bothers me to know and see that our city has spent over $35 to $37 million on paving these streets, and we still have a pothole issue. And I couldn't find anybody who has a Paterson address who was employed with that money being spent. So for me, that's a problem. When you spend $37 million in your town and nobody or a handful of individuals are employed by that, that's a problem. I want to change that. I want to provide economic opportunity. I want to provide adequate employment, not underemployment, because I've learned that some people are working, but they're just not making enough. So by way of government, we can change those conditions. We spend over $280 million in a 12-month period. And the answer is that a lot of that money is going out of town. We need to do different things to bring, if not all that money, most of that money back. I want to address the issues of crime. I've been working with various community groups, one group in particular, the Street Keepers. We've been highly instrumental in calming down what most may consider a crosstown rivalry, but by whom what people classify as up the hill and down the hill. The summer of 2015 was one of the quietest summers because individuals like myself, Kenyatta Stewart, Rashawn Dixon, the president of the Street Keepers, went to these youth, these young individuals head on, sat them down and forced them to conversate. And within their own little way, they resolved problems that could have caused our city more months and more years of turmoil. If we had the proper services and the resources, we could have continued that truce. But unfortunately, that wasn't in place. So if I'm elected, I'll make sure that young individuals who want to do the right thing but don't have the opportunity to do so have the opportunity to be provided that assistance. I want to address the issues of education, whether it be formal or informal, because part of a large majority of my understanding and my knowledge not only came from the Paterson Public School District, but it came from individuals who mentored me and gave me guidance that are born and raised in the city of Paterson, and they invested in me. So I want to use my elected position to provide those services and more with support and resource behind it to make it more sustainable for the individuals of Paterson. It is my belief, it is my thought, it is my philosophy that Paterson is not a broken city, it's not a poor city, it's a city that's deprived. So I want to bring some resources back by way of government and allow government to do what it was intended, to service and provide for the people. My name is KC Melvin, my number is 8B. I want to bring to the table fairness, trust, honesty. I have no hidden agendas. My only objective is, as my slogan says, is to make the people my priority and bring the resources back to Paterson by way of government. Again, 8B, please support me. I'm asking all 82,536 registered voters to vote for me as your next council person at large on May 8th, 2018. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. We will now have Mr. Ken McDaniel giving his closing remarks. Mr. McDaniel.
Thank you, Council President. And I'll start my closing remarks by saying this. I want people to know that I definitely love this work. I love this work. I love constituent services, community engagement. One thing I don't love, though, is the election process. In my maturity, I've matured into a very humble individual. So it's difficult to, and I know I have to, but it's difficult to use these opportunities to highlight my personal strong points and attempt to suggest why I'm preferable over other candidates. It's even more difficult when you know the individuals personally. These four individuals that are sitting here, I've known them for several years. I've worked with them in various capacities and organizations in the city of Paterson. Nonetheless, I do want to highlight certain things that I failed to mention in the opening. I definitely have a strong community service background. I listed a number of the organizations that I participate with here in the city of Paterson. That information is widely known. I do hold pertinent educational background and experience. I have a BA in sociology, a master's degree in administrative science, which is what city government is all about, bureaucracy and governance. I have a graduate certificate in public management, directly relating to city government. I have a graduate certificate in addiction studies and a doctorate in education administration. I'm currently the vice principal at Passaic County Technical Institute, the high school that I graduated from. Prior to that, I was vice principal at school number 20, the public school here in Paterson that I graduated from. Prior to that, I was a probation officer, where I picked up a lot of experience dealing with public safety, working hand in hand with the Paterson Police Department, the Passaic County Sheriff's Department, and other law enforcement agencies. The list of these things that I've done, it goes on. I'm currently the president of the Passaic County Sheriff's Department's community engagement program. I'm a school administrator, like I mentioned. I've served on the planning board here in these city council chambers. All of that experience, I believe, makes me uniquely qualified to fill this role again. And I don't want to leave out the fact that I was already here. It was an abbreviated term. I only had 2 years. But in those 2 years, I accomplished a lot. I've written legislation. I've studied legislation, not only here in the city of Paterson, but in other cities across the country, trying to bring back what's best for our particular city. I've worked with the council president in public safety. I earned the position of city council vice president. If elected, or when elected on May 8th, I am more than capable of hitting the ground running, and I offer myself to serve in a leadership role, be it city council vice president again, or city council president. So this is someone coming in with experience, ready to go. Now, voters have the opportunity to vote for 3 people, and I want to encourage every voter to make sure that in your 3, you include 7B. I'm Ken McDaniel. My ballot designation is 7B. I'm ready and willing to hit the ground running here in the city of Paterson, back on the city council. You can reach me and learn more about my plan by calling or texting 973-910-0750, 973-910-0750, or email me at abetterpaterson@gmail.com. That's abetterpaterson@gmail.com. Once again, Ken McDaniel, row 7B, on May 8th. Select me as part of your 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. Our next candidate for their final remarks is Reverend Douglas L. Maven. Will you please do your final remarks?
Thank you, Council President, and the City Clerk's Office for this opportunity to share a little bit about myself, my vision, and my hopes for the City of Paterson. What drives me to do what I do in this community is my passion. What drives me is my genuine concern. What drives me is my love for Paterson and its diverse people. What drives me not only the problems we face, but the possibilities that exist. Those possibilities, however, will require 9 people on the council who have a common vision for our city. 9 people who are willing to collaborate and become unified in our purpose for the good of Paterson. 9 people who are willing to set aside their self-interest, self-made plans and ideas, and be willing to represent the people who elected them and willing to be held accountable to them. But there's one more reality before we can transform our problems into possibilities. The vision of the council must be in sync with that of the administration, the mayor, whoever that may be. Year after year, we have seen nothing but tension and contention between the mayor's office and the city council. And for the problems of our city to become possibilities, that must cease. We need to stop bickering, stop fighting and fussing, stop feuding and being fickle, and let something get done for the good of the people who elected us. Let's demonstrate that the government is indeed for the people and by the people. Let us be accountable to each other, both the mayor and the council, to the people who elected us. I know accountability. I live accountability. I'm a Methodist, and that may not mean much to some of you who don't know that religious tradition. But what it means is that I must always answer to a higher authority. If you elect me, I have no problem answering to the people who elected me, but more importantly, I forever am mindful that I must ultimately answer to an even higher authority. Allow me to end where I begin in my opening statement. I'm a servant. That is all I've ever done. That is all I know how to do. A vote for Douglas Maven will give you a voice that is yours, a voice that will not appease you with false promises that I cannot keep, a voice that will speak what I hear from you, a voice that will vote on matters that are of concern to you, a voice that will represent you, a voice that will put the people of Paterson first. I am the Reverend Dr. Douglas L. Maven, row 2B on your ballot. It's Paterson's time. It's time for Paterson to become the economic viability it can have. It's time for Paterson to become a mecca of tourism. It's time for Paterson to build off its rich history and move into the future, putting the people of Paterson first. Again, I solicit your vote. Reverend Douglas L. Maven, row 2B on your ballot. I ask for your support. I ask for your vote. It's Paterson's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we conclude, I want to thank Ms. Angela Muhammad, Ms. Lisa Mimms, Mr. K.C. Melvin, Mr. Kenneth McDaniel, Reverend Douglas L. Maven for participating in the City Council candidate debate, Council at Large. But before I let you go, I just need to give some information out to our viewers. Your sample ballot will be mailed out by May 4th, 2018. Your polling location where you will vote will be printed on the front of your sample ballot. The third and final session of our at-large candidate forum will be Friday, April the 27th, 2018 at 2 p.m., and the following candidates will be featured: Mr. Flavio Rivera, Mr. Davon Roberts, Mr. Juan Mitch Santiago, and Mr. Zelly Thomas. Beginning Monday, April 30th, the entire series of the candidates forum will be aired on our local channel. If you have any questions regarding the municipality election, please contact our city clerk's office at 973-321-1310. And I want to say once again thank you to all 5 of my at-large candidates. This will conclude our candidates forum today, and everyone have a safe afternoon. Thank you so very much.